Hey, up YouTube, and welcome back to a new video with Rams Fan YT. In today's video, we will be going over my predictions for this upcoming week's of fixtures. Judging by the weather outside, lots of areas in the country have already had a bit of snow, and it's going to continue to be cold this week. So we will see how many of these fixtures do go ahead. I've already had to quickly make some amendments before this video has gone out with some of the fixtures which have been postponed today. And I imagine I would be surprised if many of them last by the end of today. Also, got some really big games to predict as well. We've got some good cracking Manchester Derbies. We've got the A5000 or something like that derby between Port Vale and Crewe Alexandra. Man City versus Spurs, which is always a good game because Spurs always seems to get something against Spurs always seem to get something against Man City. But we'll go straight into this with tonight's fixture of AFC Wimbledon versus Accrington Stanley. This is the only EFL official fixture going on tonight. I think with this one, it's going to be a bit of a shock. I'm going to go Accrington Stanley, AFC Wimbledon all over the place at the moment. So 4-2 to Accrington Stanley here. Then we've got the final EFL Trophy fixture. I'm not entirely sure where this has come from, because I thought we finished them in the last video, but clearly not. It's a nothing game. Both of them are already through. I'm going to go with Rotherham United 3, Bradford City 0. Pretty simple one altogether. In the National League North tonight, the only one left surviving is Oxford City versus Alfreton Town. Oxford City in a desperate position to try and stay up, but they are in a bit of good form at the moment. So I think they're going to cancel each other out here. 0-0 draw. I think Oxford City trying to grind some points, and it will be a valuable point against a good Alfreton setup. Bath City versus Maidstone United in this National League South. Again, Bath will be wanting to push themselves clear this relegation pack, but Maidstone are equally in good form, although the table at the moment would not imply as much as they are in mid-table. I'm going to go with Bath to win this one 3-0. I think at Twerton Park is a good game for Bath to try and get something from it, because they're going to want to desperately get away from that pack. On to the Friday night's fixtures. We've got in the Championship, Plymouth Argyle versus Watford. Now, Plymouth have not actually been too bad, especially at home this season. Very rarely dropping points. Watford, however, have equally been a bit so-so, I'd say, with Watford. They are one of them teams that maybe you would expect to be in the playoff pictures, and they are sixth, so they are in the playoff pictures. They're just not upper end playoff pictures. But I think Plymouth at home, difficult place to go. 3-3 draw here. I think it's going to be quite an interesting one. Then into League Two, Cheltenham Town versus Tranmere Rovers. Don't ask me why this is a Friday night kickoff. I have no idea. Cheltenham are gradually getting into a bit of swing after the shock relegation. Well, I don't know if it was a shock, but relegation regardless. So apart from the last fixture, they had some fairly decent form going for them. They're dwelling nicely in 16th. Tranmere Rovers, however, they're in 19th. They've been pretty much all over the place this season, here, there, and everywhere. So, bit of a hard game to predict this one. I'm going to go 4-0 to Cheltenham. It's a long trek on a Friday for Tranmere. So, yeah, I think the Robins could definitely see something from this. Into the Premier League, got Leicester City versus Chelsea. Enzo Maresca derby, if you want to call it that, because obviously Maresca going to Chelsea and Leicester's old manager. I do think that is naturally probably going to tend towards the manager who has been at both clubs. I think Chelsea will win this one. Chelsea are already in good form this season, and Leicester not so much. I'm going to go 3-1 to Chelsea here. I don't really expect much of an upset on the cards. AFC Bournemouth versus Brighton and Hove Albion. Some may call this the South Coast Derby. I'm not too convinced myself, but certainly it's one of them ones that both of these teams currently looking around that mid-table. I know Brighton are currently up there in the Premier League, but I don't know how long they'll be able to sustain being in the top 6 positions. Bournemouth mid-table, but they've had some decent form of late. So I do think Bournemouth will win this one 3-0 to the Cherries here. Bit of a shock maybe, but I do think Bournemouth at home, very crammed stadium, and certainly one which will be interesting to see the result of regardless. Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest. Who would have thought that both of these teams would be sitting on 19 points after 11 games, competing for that 4th spot already? Arsenal probably out of the title race already. I know it's a bit too early to say, but I do certainly think it's already sort of looking like to become a 2-horse race between Manchester City, Liverpool, and Liverpool definitely already getting a bit of gulf ahead. Personally, I see this one going to the Emirates direction, 2-1 to Arsenal. Yeah, I think Nottingham Forest started well, but I don't know if it's a sustainable form they're going to be in, and they'll probably drop off, or I'm hoping they do anyway. Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace. Villa has had a bit of distractions with Europe recently. They're sitting in 9th. Palace in a relegation battle, so they probably need the points slightly more. So for that reason, I do think 2-1 to Crystal Palace. As always the case with these clubs that get Europe for the first time in a long time, or maybe ever. I know it's a long time in Villa's taste, but I was thinking in terms of some of the other teams that are late, such as Brighton and Wolves, that they get distracted by Europe, and therefore the league sort of has an adverse effect as a byproduct. So yeah, 2-1 Palace here. Everton versus Brentford. Brentford doing, I think, really mixed this season. They're mid-table and they're 11th, but there's certainly, it's one of the things like they win one, lose one, win one, lose one. Everton have had some decent form of late, sitting just above a relegation zone, which does prove a bit of a Sean Dyche masterclass, to be honest. I'm going to go 1-0 Everton here at home. I do think Everton could get some points here, and certainly will be wanting to sort of push away from that relegation picture. That'll push them up to 14th if the results go their way. So it would certainly cement them in a good picture to be in. Fulham versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. Nothing seems to really be going Wolves' way this season. They've only started picking up points as of late, over the last 3 games or so. Fulham, however, are really good this season. They're currently in 7th, and I don't see beyond Fulham winning this one. I'm going to go 3-2 to Fulham. A close game, nevertheless, but I do think Fulham will win this one. And then the slightly later kick-off at 5:30, we've got Manchester City versus Tottenham Hotspur. And I alluded to it earlier. Man City lost the last 4 games in all competitions. There's debates about whether it's injuries, whatever the reason, tactical ineptness, whatever, by Guardiola. I think they've got to get some points if they want to hunt down a title, but Tottenham are never an easy place to get points from. As I said, Tottenham always seem to just scrape some points. And I think this might only be the second draw for Tottenham this season here. I just see it going this way. I'm going to go with a 3-3 draw. It was last time, and I think it will be again. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Going down into the Championship is a very interesting league. It always is. I mean, this season there's still a solid chasing pack, but it's not as much as usually is at this time of the season. But we've got Bristol City versus Burnley, and Bristol City is one of them teams in that chasing pack, only 3 points off playoff positions. Burnley, however, sitting nice and pretty in 4th. So it's for Burnley to lose, I think, this game. And I don't think they're gonna. I think Burnley are gonna win this one 2-1 here at the Ashton Gate, home of Bristol City. I think Burnley are going to be one of the teams that are going to do really well this season. I don't know if Sunderland will be able to maintain their form, but Burnley will definitely be up there, I think, come the end of the season. Coventry City versus Sheffield United. I wonder if they will have appointed a new manager by then. Mark Robins' sacking was very, very poor from them, I would say. And I mean, 17th sitting Coventry City. I think a change might get them some points here. Sheffield United is currently in second, but there is always a thing called an upset, and the Championship is always full of them. 1-0 to Coventry City. The Blades fans won't want to be hearing that, but it certainly will. If it's a new manager, they definitely get a new manager about. Maybe even Frank Lampard is one I've seen circling around the media of late. Sheffield Wednesday versus Cardiff City. Looking at the other end of the table for the Sheffield Wednesday, well, they're in 15th, so they're not too bad, but Cardiff are in trouble. They're in 22nd in relegation zone at the moment, albeit there is a very congested relegation pack. Anything from 14th down to 22nd at the moment are all within 3 points with each other, so could really go on a balance here. I think Sheffield Wednesday will win this one comfortably at Hillsborough, 4-0 to Wednesday. I've not been impressed by Cardiff this season. They are not looking for most able to get points away from home. But yeah. Blackburn Rovers versus Portsmouth. After having an absolutely flying start to the season, Blackburn have sort of tapered off of late. Although they did win their last match, I do think it will be one of them things where they started well, but will they reach the playoffs at the end? I'm arguing probably not. I still think they're going to drop off a bit. But against Portsmouth, good chance to get some good form back into it. Portsmouth have not been convincing this season, really. It's sitting on 12 points only in 23rd. I'm going to go Blackburn to win this one heavy. 3-0 to Rovers here at Ewood Park. Luton Town versus Hull City. 19th versus 21st, both on 15 points. Very interesting. I think Luton's slightly better form of late. But then again, both of these teams are down there for a reason, and that's due to real lack of quality, especially in the going forward department. And also, somewhat the defence of Luton has not been the most convincing either. But I think they're going to just cancel each other out here. A 0-0 draw. I don't see particularly either of them getting a goal in this game. Millwall versus Sunderland. Yeah, Sunderland sitting top of the league at the moment, although they have drawn the last 3 games, and therefore Sheffield United are breathing right down their necks. Millwall, really, really good form of late. They've not been unbeaten for quite a while now, and they are currently on 23 points, 2 points off the playoffs. It's a very interesting thing. If they win here today, not today, win here on Saturday, they could get up to 5th. And that would certainly be an interesting dynamic for Millwall. I think it won't quite be a win for Millwall, but I think they'll get a point. I'm going to go with a 1-0 draw here. Sunderland have had a lot of draws of late, and they're going to continue that at the Den. Oxford United versus Middlesbrough. Oxford United started the season fairly well, but they have slowly been sort of dropping off a bit. And Middlesbrough are in 7th, so they are still doing quite a good job. I think Middlesbrough will win this one fairly comfortably. I think 4-1 to Borough, which is not what Oxford will be wanting to hear at all. Preston North End versus Derby. I know Derby put their away without a win blows to a bed last time they were away. Well, they drew their last game, so for me, I want Derby to get something from here, but I don't think they will. Preston are always one of them teams, even though they're in 20th, they're just one of them teams that just we're not very good against. I seem to remember. So I think Derby will get something from this, but not a lot. I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw. I think as a Derby fan, I'd probably take that. That will put us on 20 points, which, approaching the 16th game of the season, sort of where you want to be is sort of 20 points will be roughly around about the mid-table point, around about a, is that roughly around a third of the season through? So, yeah, that wouldn't be too bad to be for a Derby fan such as myself. Queen's Park Rangers versus Stoke City. Stoke in 13th, another team which is very similar to Derby this season, have been a bit mixed of late. QPR are dreadful, though. They are in 24th. But we all know Stoke as a team that just likes to stay in the Championship now. And I think Queen's Park Rangers will be needing this result just to make sure that they're not totally cut adrift on the bottom of this table. I'm going 4-2 to QPR here. It's a bit of a shock one, but I think QPR will get their only second win of the season at home to Stoke City. West Bromwich Albion versus Norwich City. Again, Norwich City, probably a team which should be doing better than they are. West Brom doing really well, although they got a lot of draws of late, although they did win their last game. West Brom here, I think, will win this one. They're going to need to get back to winning ways to continue that form into the playoffs. 1-0 to the Baggies here at the Hawthorns. It's not going to be a pretty one, but I think it will be the 3 points, which is important at the end of the day. On to League One. We have got I think this one might be an early. Actually, I don't think. Probably not the early kickoff. I don't think there's an early kickoff this time. Oh no, it is the early kickoff. Yep, there's one of the early kickoffs in League One. Bolton versus Blackpool. Both of these teams have experienced the Championship recently, but then again, neither of them have been overly convincing this season. Blackpool, even under Steve Bruce, does not seem to have done as well as they expected, whereas Bolton in 11th, they would have been having an eye on the title this season for sure. I think it's going to be one of them games where Bolton are just going to need to get a point. It's going to be a scrappy, it's going to be poor, it's going to be a 1-0 Bolton win, but they're going to need it because Ian Evatt is still under a lot of pressure at the moment. The other early kickoff is Shrewsbury Town versus Birmingham City. Both of these teams quite close to each other geographically, not quite enough to be a derby, because I think they both see other teams as their more predominant rivals, but it's certainly an interesting one. Birmingham flying in the league are currently in second. They're going to be wanting to get all 3 points here. Shrewsbury at the bottom. It will be I think it's almost considered a done deal in terms of who's going to win this one. I think the one thing for me, this is, I think if Shrewsbury don't win this, it's got to be the sacking of their manager. I mean, they've appointed Gareth Ainsworth recently, actually, so that was my bad. I didn't realise they had appointed it so recently. Yeah, so Gareth Ainsworth is certainly one of them ones who will be wanting to get some points. They lost against Burton, which is what the game which really spelled an end for for Paul Hurst at Shrewsbury. But I don't think it's going to be much better here. I don't think Gareth will be able to get a tick out of them against a strong Birmingham outfit. 4-0 to the Blues here. Birmingham City are absolutely relentless this season. They really are. On to Stevenage versus Leyton Orient. Stevenage, I had a sort of a dark horse, but they have really fallen off of late. So maybe not as much as I originally anticipated. Leyton Orient sitting just above relegation zone by 1 point. Really precarious there. I think Leyton Orient will be wanting to get the points here, and I think they will do. 1-0 to Leyton Orient. It won't be pretty, but they're wanting to get away from that relegation picture because you don't want to be there towards the end of the season. Barnsley versus Wigan Athletic. Again, two teams more recently in the Championship, certainly. Barnsley doing all right this season in the playoffs, certainly expecting that from Barnsley. It's not an unusual sight to behold. Wigan in 19th, again, similar position to Leyton Orient. They just don't want to be relegated. Wigan in League Two would be an absolute disgrace, to be honest, a bit like Bolton when they were in League Two. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw here because I think the points will be shared and Wigan will be desperately wanting some. So on to the Burton Albion versus Stockport County. Burton under recent new management of late and have certainly had an uptick in form in terms of a draw and a win in their last two games. They'll be wanting to continue that, but against Stockport County is a very difficult ask because Stockport have done very well this season. Better than I think most people would have expected them to. Certainly thinking in terms of both Wrexham and Stockport have been promoted in quick succession. Like Stockport were not that long ago in the National League North, so to see them on the teetering on the edge of the Championship is something else. But no, Burton Albion at home, certainly interesting because of this uptick in form, and they'll be wanting to continue that to try and stay in the league. 2-1 to the Brewers here. Maybe a bit of local bias for me coming into that. Crawley Town versus Rotherham United. Yeah, Crawley just in the relegation zone by 1 point, but Rotherham have had a pretty dismal season, and I think Rotherham actually, even though Crawley are only 1 point off from getting out of the relegation zone, but they'll need a healthy goal difference swing, so in reality it's 2 points. Rotherham United are one of the ones which should not be in 17th. No way. So I think Crawley will lose this one. 2-1 to Rotherham. I don't think that's being uncharitable, but I think Rotherham are just underperforming so far this season. On to Huddersfield Town versus Charlton Athletic. Again, I see these two as Championship teams. I really do. Huddersfield have had some really good form as of late. Only 3 points off the playoff positions. And they've certainly had some good games in them so far this season. Charlton Athletic started the season all right. They've had a bit of form of late, but not the greatest. Then again, 13th. It's a bit of a mid-table at the moment for Charlton, which is not bad for a team undergoing a reset. But I do think the Terriers will win this one at home, 4-0 for Huddersfield here. Lincoln City versus Wycombe Wanderers. Now, Wycombe Wanderers have won a load of games this season, 10 games to be precise. They've scored 32. They've been a really, really impressive outfit. I must say, Wycombe have been the surprise package of League One, certainly. But so has Lincoln. Let's not sleep on Lincoln here. They have currently in 6th. They haven't lost in the last 4 games. They are 3 points off 3rd. That ain't a bad position to be in, and I do think Lincoln will win this one at Sincil Bank. Wycombe's run will have to come to an end at some point. 3-0 to the Imps. I think it'll be a bit of a shock, and then Wycombe will potentially get back on track. But Lincoln are not an easy team to beat, not at the moment anyway. Mansfield Town versus Bristol Rovers. Mansfield currently in 7th. They will be wanting to get into the playoffs. Again, another one of them promoted teams that are doing better than I would have expected. I would have seen them to be a bit more of a mid-table team, but Nigel Clough doing what Nigel Clough does best. Bristol Rovers, however, in 14th, much more mid-table team, and I don't think really that much of a surprise, if we're being honest. I think they will lose this one. I'm going to go Mansfield Town 2, Bristol Rovers 1. Northampton Town versus Cambridge United. Northampton Town in 16th, but Cambridge United in 22nd. So Northampton in their whirlwind of the season, to be honest, they've been getting points and then losing points, and they've been all sorts of positions. Very much a mid-table, inconsistent team. But I do think they'll win this one. 2-1 to Northampton here. Which wouldn't be too bad because that would push them up to 13th, which really, they are just really a mid-table team at the moment. Peterborough United versus Reading. So yeah, Peterborough are one of them teams which are not really performing as well as would be expected. In 12th, again, another one of them teams a bit like Bolton, which people expected to do a lot better this season. In terms of Reading, they aren't actually doing too badly, considering what a mess they've been run as for the last few years. They are only 3 points off of the playoffs. I think they will cancel each other out. They are quite close to each other in the table here. A 2-all draw. It will be quite an entertaining game, but this point will be split. Wrexham versus Exeter City. Wrexham, another one of them teams that will really, really be wanting to get into that automatic ones. They're on a race to try and get up to the Premier League as quickly as possible at the moment, it seems. We'll see if they make it. Exeter, again, a bit of a surprise package in 9th. I know they did quite well last season, so I'm not entirely sure why I was surprised to see them in 9th as I am, but it does come as a bit of a surprise, I must admit. But I think Wrexham will win this one at home. 4-0 for the Welsh outfit, and they will continue their really strong form so far this season. Grimsby Town versus Colchester United when we are going down into the League 2. That's it. Grimsby are in 7th. But they're a team which I'm not entirely sure how they managed it. They've had 8 wins and 7 losses. Realistically, it does seem like quite a mid-table team, but they're not in mid-table, which is the surprising thing. Whereas Colchester United were only 2 points above relegation zone. I thought they would have been a bit more of a surprise package this season. I would tip them as an underdog. Clearly, I know a lot about football. But yeah, I think Colchester will win this one, though. I think they're going to need to get away from that relegation pack and start to kick some form into shape. I'm going to go 3-2 Colchester. A good game at the end of the day. Notts County versus Newport County, the county off. Notts County in 6th, doing really well this season. They've been doing well both home and away. Cannot fault them, really. Only 3 losses this season. Newport County, mid-table, 15th. Not really the greatest, not the worst. They're just there. Meh. I think Notts County will win this one fairly comfortably. 3-0 to the Magpies. AFC Wimbledon versus Walsall. AFC Wimbledon are a team which really should be a bit higher up there because some of the performances they've had have been absolutely amazing. But I suppose it's been their off days which have come as a bit of a cost. Walsall in 4th. I don't think anyone quite expected them to be as good as they are this season. I do think AFC Wimbledon can get results though. And I think they'll win this one 5-1. I know that's quite a big result in terms of AFC Wimbledon, but they are one of them teams that is really, for me, being a bit of a surprise package this season in some of their games. They've looked really comfortable, such as the one against MK Dons in the FA Cup not that long ago. Bradford City versus Accrington Stanley. Bradford City in 8th, only 2 points off the playoffs. They'll be wanting to get all 3 points here, certainly. Accrington Stanley in 18th, a bit poor this season. They've sort of floated into mediocrity and a bit of a team which is a bit irrelevant at the moment. So I think Bradford City will win this one. 1-0 to the Bantams. I don't think it will be the prettiest performance, but at the end of the day, it's the points on the board that count. Carlisle United versus Doncaster Rovers. Doncaster in 3rd. I think they will very much wanting to keep that place in 3rd in automatic positions. But Carlisle may seem like a bit of an easy win. Conceded the most amount of goals this season already. On minus 15 goal difference and only 12 points. You would have thought I would be absolutely mad to claim that they will win this game. But I think with Carlisle, it's one of the cases where things are slowly starting to click. They've picked up 4 points in the last 2 games, and they are beginning to have a bit of an upturn in fortunes. I think they will win this one. It's a home fixture, which will help them out. 3-0 to Carlisle United here, which will push them out of a relegation zone if the results go their way and push them to 21st. It's certainly a position Carlisle will be wanting to get to. Chesterfield versus Barrow, the other Cumbrian outfit, and 11th v 12, both on 22 points. However, I would say that Chesterfield are the team which has been slightly better this season overall, even though the points have been shared. Because in terms of goals scored, have been absolutely amazing at 29 goals. That's the best in the league. So what does that say about the defence of conceding 20 goals is not a pretty amount, and that's probably one of the reasons their defence has not been the greatest. They've got Will Grigg at Chesterfield and a few other star striker boys, and so they're definitely excelling in that area. So this game won't be devoid of goals, I don't think, but I'm going to go here for a 2-2 draw. I think. I don't think either side will be particularly happy with it, but at the end of the day, they are roughly in the same place. Fleetwood Town versus Milton Keynes Dons. MK Dons have won the last 5 and they are currently in 5th. That is not a bad position to be in. I mean, MK Dons are usually expected to be on the upper end of League 2. That's not a surprise. Fleetwood Town in 13th. Mid-table, they spent a long time in League 1, so they're probably adjusting back to League 2 football. There's debates about how much difference there is. I think there is a bit, because you do get some good quality teams in League 1 as well. I'm going to go 1-0 for Fleetwood here. I think it will be. No one ever wants to go to Fleetwood Stadium. It's a horrible stadium to go to, especially if you're trying to play good football. And Fleetwood can just scrap out a result, which is something which I'm all too familiar with, having seen League 1 upsets time and time again by Fleetwood. Gillingham versus Harrogate Town. Gillingham in 9th. 2 points off the playoffs here. Not a bad position to be in. They've just come off quite a bad run of form, though. But they've got 4 points in the last 2. They're wanting to try and make sure that them bad form days are well and truly behind them. Harrogate Town in 17th. They are a real mess right now. Well, I wouldn't say mess, but in terms of, I couldn't really tell you where they'd end the season. They've been so inconsistent. I'm going to go 1-0 to the Gills here. A bit of a scrappy performance, but it will be needed to get them that form going back up the table. Salford City versus Bromley. Salford in 14th, Bromley in 20th. I don't think Bromley have necessarily embarrassed themselves in League 2, which is certainly a thing which is quite good for the London outfit. Salford, however, I think will be a team which will be wanting to push on a bit, and I think they will win here at the Peninsula Stadium. 2-1 to Salford here. Yep. Swindon Town versus Morecambe. This is a bit of a relegation battle here. Morecambe on 10 points, Swindon on 13. If what I predicted right with Carlisle to win, Swindon could very much get dragged into the relegation zone and well and truly into the midst of a battle. So both teams will be wanting the points here. Both teams have conceded a lot of goals, 25 for Swindon, 27 for Morecambe. But neither team has either been that good at scoring. 18 goals scored by Swindon, 14 goals scored by Morecambe. But I think this will be a case of just really bad defending, and it'll be a 3-3 draw. We're going to go big there, but it certainly isn't what either of the teams will be wanting. On to the National League and a great fixture, the Greater Manchester Derby. I don't know if that's the official name of it, but Rochdale versus Oldham is one of the greatest derbies in the National League, if not the greatest. Both of these in the playoffs at the moment as well. Oldham in 4th, Rochdale in 6th, 4 points separating the two outfits. I think this has got all the makings for a really good game. The goals scored by Oldham and Rochdale have been significant. 29 goals scored by Oldham, 27 by Rochdale. A similar amount conceded, 17 conceded for Oldham, 18 conceded for Rochdale. Could go either way. I'm going to go Oldham to win this one. They've been slightly better this season, only by a few margins. I'm going to go 4-3 to Oldham, and a really fantastic game. Is it like the Crown Oil Stadium? I don't know if it's still called that. It was also at one point called a spot in the stadium, wasn't it? Let me know what Rochdale's latest sponsorship ones is called if you want to. That is Aldershot Town versus Altrincham. Altrincham are 10th. They are one of them teams that have just weirdly been doing quite well these last few seasons, and they've gathered a bit of form over the last few games. Aldershot are in 18th. They did well last season, but they've gone back to their usual self, it would seem. I do think Aldershot will want to win this one, though. They don't want to be dragged into that relegation battle, and they are only 1 point above it, bearing in mind. Yeah, Aldershot to win this one at home. 2-0 to the Shots. Barnet versus Woking. So Barnet high flying in third. They will definitely be having half nine the title, only 3 points behind. So both Forest Green Rovers and York do not want to slip up, because against Woking, this is a very good chance for Barnet to get some points. Woking have not been the greatest team this season. They're not been the worst, but 17th position. I think Woking have had a bit of a topsy-turvy season, pre-season that was, with the announcement of potentially being in administration. They've not been in administration, but it certainly creates a bit of tremors throughout the club. So I know Barnet to win this one, 2-0. They'll bring quite a healthy away attendance because it's not that far away. But yeah, I think Barnet will want to continue from strength to strength. Boston United versus Braintree Town. Both of these teams were promoted last season, but Boston in 23rd. One of them teams that started all right, but then just sort of started sinking, really. And Braintree have won the last 2 games, but at the same time, I think Boston will be wanting to grind something out here. I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw. I think that doesn't really suit either team that well, and just leaves Boston in a bit more of a struggle. Eastleigh versus Wealdstone. Eastleigh in 12th at the moment, which is very mid-table, but they are not in the greatest run of form, picking up only 3 points from the last 6 games. Whereas Wealdstone, they have picked up, well, they've been undefeated in the last 4. They've picked up a total of 10 points in their last 6 games, and so they are certainly the more informed team. I think it'll be another point here for Wealdstone. I'm going to go with 0-0 draw. It won't be pretty, but I think Wealdstone will just want to get that gap between them and relegation teams, because they're just above it, only on goal difference at the moment. AFC Fylde versus Ebbsfleet United, a classical. Both of these teams in relegation zone at the moment. Ebbsfleet, I do not see likely to get out of this at the moment. They already seem quite cut off, 10 points out from safety. AFC Fylde only on goal difference, 7-goal swing. However, they have conceded a lot of goals, 37, as has Ebbsfleet, 43. So what am I going to thinking of this game? I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw here. Neither team doing. I mean, Fylde has scored a fair few goals this season, but at the same time, they conceded a lot. A 1-1 draw, I don't think will be far off from what we can be expecting to see here. FC Halifax Town versus Sutton United. Sutton, I think people may have expected a bit better than 11th. Not so myself. I do think relegation from League 2 is always comes as a bit of a shock. And Forest Green Rovers are doing better than I think most people, well, what I expected anyway, because it's one of them leagues where you can get stuck in here for a while. FC Halifax Town in 7th, so they are in some good form in themselves. Yeah, I think they will be a close game, though. Closer than I'm probably letting it on to be. A 2-2 draw here. I do think FC Halifax Town may come slightly undone against Sutton, which will be wanting to move closer and closer towards that playoff picture. They are only 4 points separating the two after all. Maidenhead United versus Gateshead. Gateshead's such a weird team. They're in 5th at the moment. They started the season incredibly well. Let's just put that on record. But have already started a bit of a wobble. Maidenhead United, they have lost the last 3. They're in 22nd. So naturally, you would think Maidenhead would be absolutely battered here. But Gateshead seem to have a habit of just losing against the most unexpected teams. And I think Maidenhead will win this one 2-1. to the Magpies, I think they're called. Solihull Moors versus Hartlepool United. Solihull Moors in ninth. They are only 1 point off the playoffs, so they will definitely be wanting to get something here. Hartlepool in 14th. They've been really all over the place this season, Hartlepool. Bit of mid-table mediocrity. Solihull to win this one, 2-1, because they will be wanting to get into the playoffs. Hopefully do a bit better than they did last season and get that one step further and earn promotion. Southend United versus Forest Green Rovers. Forest Green Rovers flying high at the top of the league at 40 points already. Having scored 35 goals and only conceded 14, it's a pretty good picture for Forest Green. Southend, not so much in 16th. You would probably expect them to be slightly better, especially with some of the more positive turns of events going in the Essex club at the moment. I think Forest Green Rovers will win this one. It'll be a close game at 1-0 to the Gloucestershire outfit. Tamworth versus Dagenham and Redbridge. Both of these teams on 22 points. It's a bit of a nothing game, to be honest. Both of these teams looking like they'll end up in mid-table regardless. I think this one will end up in a 0-0 draw. Yeah, a bit of a boring game, to be honest. York City versus Yeovil Town. York City won't want to take their eye off a minute after losing against Forest Green Rovers. They will be hoping probably that it's just a blip. Yeovil, however, lost also their last game after having an amazing run of form which took them into the playoffs. Now they are just 8th. So both of these teams will be wanting to gain something here this weekend. At the LNER Community Stadium, I think York City have host advantages. Great form so far this season as well. The Minstermen to win 2-1. On to the National League North, and we're looking at teams that both are usually playoff contenders. Brackley have only just managed to get into the playoffs in 7th, having had a good run of form as of late. Alfreton have had a really mixed run of form as well. I think Alfreton will lose this one, unfortunately. I think Brackley Town will win this one at 1-0, which would push them, if results do go their way, to 3rd place, which does sort of tell you how close the league table is at the moment. On to Buxton versus Oxford City. Oxford City making 2 trips to Derbyshire in a week, and Buxton started the season all right, I suppose. Well, they've done phenomenally of late, and they did lose their last game, but they are well and truly in the playoffs in 5th. Last season they were in mid-table, so this is doing really well. And John McGrath, I believe, the manager of Buxton, won the National League North Manager of the Month award. So they are certainly going to be very cursed, because that is just what happens. And against Oxford City, who let's just say have had a decent run of form. We touched upon it earlier in this video. I think it will be a cancelling out here, 0-0. Not what John McGrath will be wanting to see. Former Mickleover manager, of course. And he did a sterling job with them there as well. Down to Chester versus Chorley. Yeah, but Chorley top of the league, which I suppose is a bit of an upset, considering both Kidderminster Harriers and Scunthorpe would probably be heavy favourites. So, but Chorley always do well in this league. Chester, considering the budget they spent this season, would probably be arguing that they want to have a bit better of a finish than 10th. I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw here. I think Chester will be wanting to gain a point just to show the fan base that they are moving in the right direction. It will not be good for Chorley. I think Chorley will be wanting all 3 points here, but you can't always get what you want, as the song says. Curzon Ashton versus Radcliffe. A bit of a Greater Manchester Derby, this one. Not as much as the one I previously alluded to, but again, local rivalry of sorts. I think this will be an interesting one. Curzon Ashton 3rd, which I think is the shock of the season, to be honest. Curzon Ashton, I did not expect to be anywhere near the playoffs this season. Radcliffe, well, they're on the other end of the table. They're in 21st in relegation zone. Not looking the prettiest at the moment. And I think Curzon Ashton will win this one 2-1 to Curzon. Darlington versus Hereford. Hereford in sixth. They started the season really, really, really well. Um, I'm not entirely sure how they even managed it because, for me, Hereford has always been a mid-table team. Darlington, let's just say that they've done all right of late in 14th, considering their um, miraculous escape from relegation last season. I don't think 14th would be too bad for the Durham outfit, and I think they'd take it. I think Darlington at home, difficult place to go. Hereford have got a long trip to do. 2-0 to Darlow here, and the Quakers will seal the 3 points. Kingsland Town versus Southport. Kingsland Town are on 27 points. They are only one goal difference away from the playoffs. Whereas Southport, they aren't too bad either. They are only 3 points behind. And I must say, Southport are in slightly better form. So Southport getting all 3 points here is not beyond the realm of possibility, especially considering they've scored 25 goals this season, which is not too shabby. Their defence, well, less said about that, the better. If conceding 29 goals, that is definitely puts them within that relegation picture, I must say. So if they sort out their defence, they could definitely get somewhere. I think they'll win this one 4-1 to the Merseyside outfit. It will be quite an interesting day for Kings Lynn, and they'll be doing a lot of soul searching. Leamington versus Scunthorpe. Leamington in 13th, which is probably good for a team which is newly promoted, although they have experienced the league a lot themselves. Scunthorpe have not done great in the last 2 fixtures, losing both of them, and I think it'll be another tough day at the office for the Lincolnshire outfit. A 0-0 draw here. The Breakers will get that point, which will be seen as a good point. Marine versus Needham Market. A bit of a relegation battle, 13 points versus 12 points. Neither of these have been scoring that many goals. 7 goals only scored by Marine, 12 goals only scored by Needham Market. So this, I'm sorry, has a 0-0 draw written all over it. Yep. And I mean, Marine do have a good defence, though. They've only conceded 21 goals, so they are actually not that bad in the defence. Needham Market are dreadful in defence. They are the worst in the league. But yeah, I think 0-0. Nobody really being able to capitalise on this game. Peterborough Sports versus Spennymoor Town. Peterborough Sports in 16th, having been unbeaten in the last 3, but in 2 wins and a draw. That's not entirely a bad run of form for Peterborough. Spennymoor, though, are equally on a good run of form, having not been unbeaten in the last 3 as well. So someone's form going to have to give over here. And I think Spennymoor are slightly better outfit, having already scored 25 goals this season. It's not looking too bad. And yeah, I think Spennymoor will continue this one. 2-0 to Spennymoor here. Rushall Olympic versus Warrington Town. Seems to have a lot of relegation battles at the moment, as Rushall are playing host to Warrington. I think Rushall are pretty dead and buried. They are 7 points adrift, and I don't think they're going to get a point. They'll get. I think they'll need to get a point, and actually they might get a point. I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw. I'm going to revise what I'm saying, because I do think Warrington have not been great this season either. Yeah, I don't think that's going to help anybody in the relegation picture, any of the results I've predicted today. So Scarborough Athletic versus Kidderminster Harriers. Scarborough, I would have expected slightly better from in 17th, and they're going to really want to get some points to push themselves away from that relegation pack. Kidderminster Harriers, though, difficult team. They are the informed team of the league, certainly, between them and Brackley Town, certainly. Kidderminster, though, will be a bit of a... They've got a difficult trip to get to. The Flamingo Land. I don't know if it's still called the Flamingo World Stadium. But we're still gonna call it that because it's such an incredible name of a stadium. Scarborough Athletic to win this one 4-2. They always seem to have an upset in their locker, Scarborough, and this is one of them. South Shields versus Farsley Celtic. So yeah, both of these teams sort of probably should be I mean, Farsley, I'm not surprised where they are in 18th. That is not a surprise. But South Shields, maybe a little bit better, I expected from them than 15th. So yeah, I think it'll be quite a close game. 2 points separating them. 2-1 to South Shields at home. Should There's a bit of pressure going around at the club at the moment on the management um, and uncertainty behind the scenes. So it'll be a much needed 3 points. On to the National League South, Bournemouth versus Torquay United. Torquay United have done some wonders this season, I must say. Some really good form at the moment, having not lost in the last four, I believe. Bournemouth are on the cusp of the playoffs, only 2 points off it. I think Torquay, though, you look at it, at the Torquay versus Truro, it was a Torquay winning the FA Trophy. By the way, when I say either on a form, I don't include FA trophies in that. I only include league fixtures. But you look at the FA Trophy game, they've narrowly managed to edge past Truro, and I think a similar occasion will be happening here. I'm going to go with another 1-0 draw for Torquay here on the road to Bournemouth. It will be a good 3 points for the Devon outfit, which will push them. If the games go their way, they will get into second place, which Torquay are going to get back to where they belong potentially. Dorking Wanderers versus Enfield Town. Dorking in sixth. Certainly a team which will be expecting to be up there at the end of the season, we must say. Enfield have been pretty garbage this season. 10 points only, conceded 37 goals, only scoring 15. They're being pretty dreadful for their money, and back to tier 7 they will probably end up going. But this game here, I think they'll be trying to get something. I think Dorking will win this one. 1-0 to the Surrey-based outfit, which will certainly keep up that hopes of Dorking to get into the playoffs come the end of the season. Eastbourne Borough versus Bath City. Bath have lost the last four, and I must honestly say, if they don't win this game, they are going to surely have to sack their manager, because, I mean, the fact is fairly simple. That you can't end up in that position and still keep your job. You can't just be scraping along with relegation form. So yeah, the manager of Jerry Gill is really under pressure of late, I would say. And you must say he has been a loyal servant to Bath, and I respect him for it. And has done really well with Bath, and he will definitely find another job if he is sacked. But do I think it'd be? I don't think at the moment. Oh no, I literally have not seen the news. Literally yesterday. So before I was even planning the video, I was planning the video on because I was at a funeral yesterday, planning the video on Sunday. He had not been sacked, but he has now been sacked. So that does not surprise me. I thought they would have given him this one game. However, that is probably good for the club. And so maybe even just getting rid of him will provide that bounce needed to get away from the relegation zone. And against Eastbourne Borough, that's a difficult game. Eastbourne are only 3 points off the top of the league if results go their way. Quite a hefty goal difference swing though, so I don't think that's really going to be what does it. I do think Bath will win this one. I think that removing Jerry Gill was a good move from them at the end of the day. 2-1 to Bath here. I'm not saying that they'll win every game from here on in, but they're going to need to get some results to get away from that relegation zone. Hampton and Richmond Borough versus Aveley. Hampton and Richmond are 11th. They have won the last three on the bounce. Pretty good. Aveley are on 11 points. So I think Aveley will probably be wanting this a bit more. I think they're going to want to try and get out of this relegation zone. They did well last season with that underdog mentality, and maybe they'll get back to that way of going. 1-0 to Aveley here. I think it'll be a very close game, and it will be interesting to see if they can really mount on and get out of that relegation zone. On to Hornchurch versus Weymouth. Hornchurch in 17th. They seem to have done enough at the moment to just keep their heads well away from a relegation zone. I must say, at 20 points, that's not a bad start for a team who has been newly promoted. Definitely one who will probably end up staying. They've also been in some decent form of late, but so has Weymouth. And that's surprising, seeing they're 22nd. But they have not been defeated in the league for quite a while now. I think a defeat vote will be coming for Weymouth here. I think that run of form is going to end. Hornchurch will want to make sure that they are nowhere near this relegation picture. So 2-1 to the Urchins here. I think it'll be a valuable 3 points come the end of the season. Salisbury versus Maidstone United. Maidstone, as I was alluding to earlier, in a really good run of form. Salisbury, however, are not. Let's put it that way. They are 17 points from 16 games, so it's enough to stay in the league, which is probably what Salisbury are around about looking at right now. I think Salisbury will be wanting to get some points, though, a bit more than just a draw. And Maidstone, I think they started slowly and they will come undone against some of these teams. I'm going to go 2-0 Salisbury here, which will be a bit of a shock, I think. But we're going to go with it. We'll love a good upset in these videos. Slough Town versus Welling United. Welling are, as predictable, in 19th. They have lost the last 4. Have Welling United recently parted with their manager? Because they are the other team who I would certainly be of the opinion that if they don't win, a draw I think could probably save them. But if they don't get anything from this game, the Welling's manager will probably have to go, because you don't want to end up sliding into that relegation picture. You really don't. And I know it's 4 points, but having lost the last 4 games, it is not. It doesn't scream confidence to me. So unless it's another one of them cases where they literally sacked their manager yesterday, they've apparently got Rod Stringer as their manager, who I'm not entirely sure who that is. But yeah, he's been around for a while, and well, since last January, and let's be honest, not done the greatest job. I mean, he definitely had a interesting career even before moving to I would personally wouldn't have even appointed him, to be honest, just looking at his CV, because yes, he had some successes, but it was in much lower divisions. Against Slough, it's a difficult game. I think his job is under threat, and Slough have been a bit mixed of late. Let's put it that way. I know with a 1-1 draw here, I think they're going to be wanting to keep away from that relegation pack well in, and I think Slough will probably come in thinking it's going to be a bit of an easy game. St Albans City versus Chippenham Town. Now, St Albans in 21st, not really where they want to be, although they have not been beaten in the last 4 games. That is an important thing to bear in mind in this. However, I think Chippenham are also undefeated in the last 3, and I think Chippenham are one of them teams that will be content with mid-table, but they'll be wanting to beat the teams like St Albans here. So 1-0 to Chippenham. I think it'll be a close game. Tonbridge Angels versus Hemel Hempstead Town. Hemel Hempstead have lost the last 5. The fact they have not sacked, if they've not sacked their manager, that is truly mind-blowing, to be honest. I know Hemel Hempstead started the season well, and that may have put a bit of credit in the bank. But you can't go from high flying in the playoffs to crashing into 14th. And what the club seems to be an absolute free fall now. So I'm going to have to say, if Hemel Hempstead wanted to continue into that playoff positions, it would have made more sense to sack Bobby Wilkinson. But it doesn't look like they're gonna, or certainly not yet. A loss here could definitely tip them to having forced their hand, in a sense. I mean, I know he's not been at the club that long, so that could be also another one of them things that, yeah. I mean, he has delivered under difficult circumstances before. He has had a track record of turning a ship around, even when he was at the helm. Against Tonbridge Angels, ooh, I could definitely see him getting some points. So I'm going to go with a 3-3 draw, because Tonbridge aren't in the greatest of nicks themselves. Would that really help either people? Not really. I'm not seeing it. But yeah. Truro City versus Cheshire United. Truro are 3 points and 3 goals off top of the league, so they'll be wanting to win this one almost certainly. Cheshire United are in 10th and they are in really good form. They've won the last 3, so that and unbeaten in 4, not a bad running form. I don't know if they will manage to get the playoffs, but it's certainly, if they continue that form, they can certainly make a charge. I do think Truro, though, will be the end of that form. And apart from the last league game, Truro have been great this season. 3-1 for the Cornish outfit, which will certainly push them into a good position to be in. And I do think Truro are slowly becoming a bit of a hidden side who may get promotion this season, as a bit of a surprise to everybody. Well, certainly me, maybe not others. Weston-super-Mare versus Farnborough. Weston-super-Mare have only lost twice this season and are top of the league. Definitely one of them ones which we'll be watching out for. But Farnborough in 5th. Now, Farnborough has come as a, I mean, both of these teams have come a bit of a shock. But Farnborough and Weston-super-Mare are both of these teams with mid-table last season, who have broken through that traditional top 7 sort of teams and are quite competitive. I think Farnborough will win this one, actually. Weston-super-Mare will fall down at some point, and I think 3-0 to Farnborough will be a very interesting tale at the top of the table then, because that will mean that only one goal will separate the 2 teams. Oh no, because that's 3 down. No, that means Truro City, sorry, will go on top of the league on goal difference. You heard it here first. Worthing versus Chelmsford City. Worthing in 8th on literally goal difference outside of the playoffs, so they'll be desperately wanting to get something here. But I must say, Chelmsford City are one of the things that they've not done well this season, but can turn on a performance when they need to. 3-2 to Chelmsford City here. I think these 2 teams were in the playoffs last season. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it will certainly be an interesting occasion nevertheless. On to the Saturday fixtures, we have got Southampton versus Liverpool. Southampton, you probably expect me to say something like 9-0 to Liverpool here, and you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if it is, because Liverpool are flying this season, and Arne Slot seems to have really done a good job. But Southampton will be wanting to come and cause an upset at home as well. I think it's going to be a 4-4 draw like it was last time. And call me cynic and think, oh, that was just a fluke. It's never going to happen again. I think it might do. Southampton need the points. And Liverpool are known for being to bottle it from time to time. Ipswich Town versus Manchester United. Yeah, I think Ipswich, unfortunately, this is a chance for them to get some points, but I don't think they're going to. 1-0 to Manchester United. I think it'll be a close game, and Ipswich will run close. Swansea City versus Leeds United. I mean, it's fairly obvious. Swansea mid-table at the moment. Leeds are definitely got half an eye on the automatics, or maybe both eyes on the automatics, and half an eye on the title. 4-0 to Leeds United here. Newcastle United versus West Ham United. Both of these teams are typical teams that will be over recent years been pushing for that Europa League position. And again, it's going to be a really good game at St James's Park. If I just looked out my window, I will be able to see it. So I'm going to go with Newcastle to win this one 4-3. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. This, whatever derby you call it, between Port Vale and Crewe Alexandra. Port Vale are sky high this season. They're doing such a good job. I'm going to go with a 1-0 win for the Valiants. We might feasibly see them in League One next season. At current form, it's definitely looking like it. Aveley versus St Albans City. Yep, again, both of these teams in a relegation picture. And if Aveley gets some points here, then they can really definitely put a mount on to getting out of this relegation zone. After what I've just predicted earlier on this video, and I think they will. So I'm going to go for another win. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win to Aveley, which means that they get 9 points over the last 3 games, and that will put them outside of the relegation zone. Finally, a bit of form coming towards Aveley, and will make sure that they don't get relegated. That plucky underdogs will come back. Hemel Hempstead Town versus Dorking Wanderers. I already went into a bit in depth in Hemel Hempstead earlier when they were against Tonbridge. Dorking is not an easy game, but I think Hemel Hempstead will grind out some point. A pointer at that 2-2 draw here. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you very much if you are regular and checking in everything. I hope it's going on all right. We will continue predictions next week. We'll see if I have time, if there's any other videos. But I will catch you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.